Good evening, City of Conway, and good evening, Commissioners. We have a pretty lengthy agenda. I think there's some folks still jumping on, but I'm going to go ahead and get started in the essence of time. So let's go ahead and jump into our call to order and roll call. Ms. Delencia.
I'm here.
Good to see you this evening.
You too, thanks.
Ms. Williams. I see your face. There
Present.
you go. Gotcha. Got you down. Ms. Fincher.
Present.
Thank you. Let's see. Rick's is gone. I got a message from Drew. He's not going to be able to join us this evening. Mr. Ingram.
Hey, Brandon, I'm here.
Good evening, sir. Miss Sanders Jones. I don't see her face up there, so I'm going to mark her down. Okay. She is absent. And Mr. Townsend.
Present.
Thank you, sir. And Miss Tucker.
I'm here. Sorry.
Good. Hey, Ann. All right. First order of business, we're going to review these minutes from the last meeting in November the 16th. Any questions or corrections?
Not here.
All right. I'd love to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Ann. We have a motion to approve the minutes in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Very good. Motion passes. All right, let's jump into our subdivision review. We have 4 items this evening for subdivision committee. The first of which, request for preliminary plat approval of Faison Properties replat. Mr. Hill.
Yes. The applicant is requesting preliminary approval of an 8-lot subdivision located on the east side of Mildred Street, approximately 250 feet south of the intersection of College and Mildred. The property is zoned R2, which is the low-density residential zoning district. The proposed lots range from 7,700 square feet to 12,400 square feet, which is consistent with the lot requirements of the site's zoning classification. All of the proposed lots will take access from Mildred Street, and the proposed lot sizes will meet the zoning code requirements for duplex development. No waivers were included as a part of this request, and staff recommends approval of the plat contingent on the associated conditions of approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Hill?
Nope.
Okay. And being that this is subdivision review and not a public hearing item, we want to give an opportunity for the owner or applicant to add anything. I think we have Tyler Group. Looks pretty straightforward to me. Love to entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ray and a second from Rebecca. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to the second item in our subdivision review. This is a request for a preliminary plat approval of the estates at Centennial Valley. Mr. Hill, I believe that's you again.
That's right. The applicant is requesting preliminary approval of an 11 lot subdivision. It's located approximately 500 feet north of the intersection of Warwick Hills Lane and Tyler Street. The property is zoned R1, single family residential. The proposed lots will range from 0.61 acres to 1.11 acres, which is consistent with the lot requirements of the R1 zoning district. Subdivision will feature a single access point from Warwick Hills Lane, with the lots being accessed by a new internal street that'll be constructed as a part of this development. All proposed streets will require 5-foot sidewalks with a 6.5-foot green space. No waivers were included as a part of this request, and staff has recommended approval of the preliminary plat contingent on the completion of the amended punch list and associated conditions of approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. The only question I would have would be for the applicant, just to ensure that CAPS is aware of these 8 conditions being proposed. They look boilerplate to me.
Yes, I've looked over that. I don't think we have anything that give us any trouble. This is Bobby, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. French. Commissioners, any questions for Levi or for Mr. French?
No questions.
Question. I noticed that a couple of these say wheelchair ramps shall be provided, but not all of them. What is the difference? And why would some have wheelchair ramps and others not?
Any wheelchair ramps that are associated with the development or the construction of the street will be required by the developer.
Right, but on this Faison one, I didn't see that wheelchair ramps were.
That's actually an existing street, so there
Okay.
actually isn't, and there's no intersections as a part of that development. So there actually wouldn't be, there's no ramps throughout that part of the street. So that's why it's not required.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Good question. And I guess, again, we're not in a public hearing, but we have any opposition to this request? It looks like there's no neighbors affected and we're surrounded by golf course. Commissioners, I'd love to entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion from Brian and a second from Delencia. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to our third subdivision item. This is another preliminary plat approval for Miller's Creek subdivision. Mr. Hill.
Yes. The applicant is requesting preliminary approval of a 50-lot subdivision, and this is located approximately 300 feet east of the intersection of East German Lane and Lower Ridge Road. If you'll remember, this property a few months back was before you for annexation, so it probably looks familiar. The development represents phase 1 of the Millers Creek subdivision and is zoned R1 single family residential. The proposed lots range from 7,800 square feet to 16,500 square feet, which is consistent with the lot requirements of the site zoning. The subdivision will feature one access point from Lower Ridge Road and an additional access point from East German Lane. The proposed lots will be accessed from a new internal street network, as you can see in the report, which will be extended through what will later be phase 2 of Millers Creek. All proposed streets will require 5-foot sidewalks and a 6.5-foot green space. As noted in your report, one waiver was included in this request for the creation of double frontage lots. And planning staff has recommended approval of the plat contingent upon the completion of the amended punch list and the associated conditions of approval. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioners, the floor is yours.
Okay, Levi, when we have these, like the zoning map is in here, then the comprehensive plan is in here. What are we looking at when we're looking at these requests?
So specifically with the subdivision, once the zoning is in place, as it is for this site, which is the zoning, We're simply reviewing this to see that it meets each lot meets the requirements of that zoning district for lots being created. So that would meet the minimum lot sizes, frontage and depth requirements. Beyond that, we're looking for just compliance with the subdivision regulations, which is the separate code that regulates these types of developments.
Right, but like on the next page, if you were to go to the next page here on your screen, and we see the zoning map, and then we see the slice of the comprehensive plan. What am I seeing what am I looking at?
Well, for
Is there
this
anything
particular one,
that I need to notice between the zoning map and the comprehensive plan?
they're simply there for reference. So the zone just gives you an idea of what the adjacent properties are zoned and what they're designated for in the future under the existing comprehensive plan. So it just gives you some frame of reference whenever you're looking at these developments, and if you feel that the layout, street connections, and everything is adequate.
Okay, gotcha.
Any other questions for Mr. Hill or for the applicant? I believe we probably still have Bobby on. I think we can entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion from Rebecca.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Arthur. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. Move to our fourth and final subdivision item this evening, which is another preliminary plat approval of Maley Village subdivision. I hope I said that right.
Yes, the applicant is requesting preliminary approval of a 3-lot subdivision, which is located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Thomas G. Wilson Drive and East Dave Ward Drive. The northwest corner of the property is zone C3, which is highway commercial, while the remaining portion of the property is zone A1, which is our agricultural district. The proposed lots range from 2.5 acres to 14.2 acres, which is consistent with the lot requirements of both of the site zoning classifications. The proposed lots would take access from Thomas G. Wilson and East Dave Ward Drive. And additionally, lots will take access from a newly proposed street that will be constructed as a part of this development. Additionally, cross-access easements are proposed throughout the development, which will provide additional access to each lot. As this property is proposed to be developed commercially, sidewalks would be required at the time of development, so through the development review process. As noted in your report, one waiver was included in the request for creating a block which exceeds 1,500 feet. This is expected to be a temporary condition that will likely be resolved once the lots to the south of this development actually develop and the out parcels develop as well. With that being said, staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat contingent upon the completion of the amended punch list and the associated conditions of approval. I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you provide information on that waiver again?
Sure. If you look at the actual plat diagram in the report, it shows that street, that's the newly proposed street. It currently extends further than 1,500 feet, which the subdivision regulations discourage blocks that exceed 1,500 square feet. But it's expected to be temporary just because there's not any development that kind of creates that cross street kind of traffic stop that'll likely be there in the future when these lots develop.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're okay to move to approve on this one as well.
Second.
Excellent. We have a motion from Delencia and a second from Rebecca. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Very well. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move to the public hearing portion of our meeting this evening. The Conway Planning Commission makes recommendations to the City Council on public hearing items. Items reviewed on this agenda will be considered by the City Council as early as January 12th, 2021. Items not approved by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council within 30 days of the Planning Commission denial, with the exception of the decisions made by the Planning Commission acting as a Board of Zoning Adjustment. If an item is appealed to the City Council, a public notice will be placed on the property and at conwayarkansas.gov. So the first public hearing item we have this evening would be a request to annex 10 acres plus or minus east of East German Lane, north of Rich Smith Lane.
Yes, good evening. So the applicant is seeking to annex about 10 acres there. The address of the current address of the property is 1850 East German Lane. The property, as you said, is located just north of Rich Smith Lane, and it currently contains one single-family residence and plus a number of various sized outbuildings. The applicant is requesting that the property be zoned R1 upon annexation, and staff concurs with the requested zoning. If it was developed as single-family residential, it's estimated that the property could accommodate up to 45 lots, which would have a minimal impact on traffic increase. Water and sewer service extensions will be required to support development, but they are available. The fire department noted some concern regarding adequate fire flow, but the applicant would be required to install improvements to resolve any issue like that. The remaining reviewing agencies had no objections to the annexation.
Thank you, Ms. Quito. Do we have anybody online to speak in favor of this request?
Can y'all hear me, Planning Commission?
Yes, sir. If you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Christopher Seiler. I'm at 1513 East German. I represent the Shooks.
Anything you'd like to add to the staff comments?
Yeah, the only thing is, everything north of Rumker there is moving towards annexation, moving into the city limits, and we're just trying to help out builders cut through that process to speed it up to help my clients there.
Understood. Okay. We have anyone else online to speak in favor of this request? Anyone to speak in opposition of this request?
Mr. Chairman, we did not receive. Actually, I'm currently monitoring the YouTube feed to see if there's any chat questions that come in. But for all items, we have not received any public comment.
Very good. Thank you. All right, commissioners, we'll bring this back into discussion.
Should we move that fire department developer will be required recommendation up to an actual condition and make that a part of the approval process, or will it be okay to leave it as just a recommendation?
That's a great question.
So with an annexation, the resolution of that would be handled at the time of development. With an annexation, annexations cannot be conditioned.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Delencia. Commissioners, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
If no further questions, I make a motion that we approve the annexation with the conditions and recommendations listed.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you for that second. Rebecca, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very well. Motion passes unanimously. We move to our second public hearing item, where we have a request to modify conditional use permit for a child care facility in a R2 zoning. Mr. Hill.
Yeah, the applicant is seeking to modify an existing conditional use permit for the property at 2425 Tyler Street, which currently allows the property to be used as a child care facility. The applicant's requesting to remove the condition which restricts the use, the conditional use to a given applicant or occupant. In this case, it was the original applicant for the conditional use permit. If you remember last month, we had a similar request to remove a similar condition that restricted a conditional use to a singular person. This is another one of those housekeeping modifications that we're just removing that condition. No other changes are proposed to the use, and staff recommends approval of the request to modify the existing conditional use permit per the current conditions and propose new or modified conditions noted in the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Do we have anybody online for the applicant to speak in favor? Anything to add beyond the staff comments?
No comments.
Any opposition to this request? Seeing that there is none, commissioners will bring this back into discussion.
It appears to me that it's just a housekeeping issue, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Ann. We have a second from Ray. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. I would move into number 3 this evening in our public hearing. We have a request for a conditional use permit for temporary parking in an S1 zoning. Mr. Hill again.
Yes, the applicant has requested approval of a conditional use permit, which would allow the properties at 731 Donaghy and 2131 Lavinia Avenue to be used as temporary parking lots and construction laydown lots during the construction of the Conway Regional Medical Center expansion. More specifically, these properties are located at the northeast and southeast corners of Lavinia and Augusta Avenue. The applicant is proposing the use as temporary between January 2021 and December 2022. The use is not expected to have any significant traffic impacts, and staff has recommended approval of the conditional use permit with the conditions as noted in the report. And staff feels that as conditioned, the use would not likely result in any harm to the adjacent properties. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. I believe we'll take an opportunity to hear any additional support from the applicant.
Yes, this is Aaron Scott with Cromwell Architects and Engineers on behalf of Conway Regional. So this is a temporary gravel lot currently. That's what both of these areas are. They served as both contractor parking and laydown area for the construction of the medical office building just immediately to the west of the lots. And the expectation is during the construction of a 3rd and 4th floor expansion on top of the OR portion of the hospital, that these lots would serve that same function. So the contractor would use them to stage and also to park, and possibly towards the end also some hospital staff parking. It's currently lit and gravelled. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the condition to add fencing is not something that the Conway Regional opposes whatsoever. So we can agree to that. If there are any other questions, I can answer those at this time.
Question, just can you kind of define fencing versus just being the adjacent properties being shielded?
I would rely on Levi and James' interpretation of that, but if I'm not mistaken, there are some. It ends up meaning privacy fencing. Is that not correct, Levi?
That is correct. Yes, it's both from adjacent properties and then public right of way. These particular lots, I know a lot of the neighboring properties may be owned by by Conway Regional. If that is the case, then I mean we would obviously review that case by case and wouldn't require such conditions. But from public right of way, it is, like you said, privacy fencing style, opaque fencing.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Scott or Mr. Hill while we have them? Okay. We have any anyone online or any comments come in against the request? None. Okay. Well, we can bring this back into discussion. Commissioners, what say you? I'm okay with this request. I think the hospital's done a great job of keeping those lots looking nice and mulching the walkways, and it's looked good to me.
I agree.
I agree.
I make a motion to approve this request to use those as parking lots from January 2021 through December 2022.
I'll second it.
Second.
All right. I've got a motion from Arthur and a second from Ann. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I need to abstain, please.
Thank you, Ms. Fincher.
Yes, sir.
I will also vote in favor of this request, so the motion passes. Okay, moving on to our next item, we have a request to rezone from O2 to an R1. Ms. Skeeto, walk us through this one, please.
Sure. So the applicant is seeking to rezone the 2.5 acres that's located there at the northeast corner of the intersection of Trison Lane and East Stephen Morgan. The property is currently zoned O2. They are seeking R1 to allow for new single-family development. The current quiet office zoning with a conditional use permit allowed the previous owners to operate a small business alongside their primary residence, and that's no longer in play. The property was recently subdivided into 7 single-family lots, with 4 of those lots taking shared access from East Stephen Morgan Road, and the remaining lots will have access from Trison Lane. The comprehensive plan indicates single family is appropriate. Planning staff recommends approval as it will allow for appropriate development and it will not likely negatively impact the adjacent properties.
Thank you, ma'am. We have any additional support from the applicant? Mr. Hamilton? I don't see anyone online. Okay, let's see. Did we had any comments come in against the request? Seeing none, we can bring this back into commission for discussion.
They've already got those duplexes right behind that house that was there on the corner. And so it's amazing they can get 7 lots out of that property, but I guess they can. I don't see a problem with it.
I recommend that we move to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Delencia and a second from Rebecca. All those in favor to rezone this property from O2 to R1, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have, let me get there, a request to rezone from an I3 to a C3 over on Dave Ward. Ms. Skeeto.
Okay, so yeah, the applicant is seeking to rezone this property, like you said, from I3 to C3. It's comprised of about 29 acres there. It mainly fronts on Dave Ward Drive, but a portion of it is located off of Covington Way, the new street that's been constructed there. It is located along a major thoroughfare, and it's currently developed with a series of multi-tenant general office buildings. They range in size from 11,000 square feet to 24,000 square feet. And although the comprehensive plan does indicate the area is appropriate for general industry, I'm sure you're familiar that this portion of Dave Ward Drive over the last 10 to 15 years has really transitioned more from a heavy industrial feel to more commercial in nature. And though it's partially developed, there's still considerable area remaining on this property for additional development. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning. It will better align the property with the current character of the area and it allow for more consistent design for future projects.
Thank you, Beth. I'll have a given opportunity for the applicant to speak in favor of the request.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mr. Covington.
Okay, so we've already built what we can build right on Dave Ward Drive, and none of those buildings can take a drive-through. So, businesses with drive-through want right on the road, so I don't see any businesses ever having a drive-through. But everything around us is either C3 or industrial, and we'd just like to rezone this C3 where we don't have to keep coming back for conditional use for different businesses.
That makes sense to me. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Mr. Covington or for Ms. Skeeto? Okay, let's see if we have any opposition to this request. None. All right. Now we can bring it back in for discussion. Any further questions, comments, or concerns?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. I've got a motion from Ann and a second from Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
And any abstentions? All right, motion passes unanimously. Rezone. Thank you. All right. Next, we have a request to rezone from R1 to O3. Mr. Walden's going to walk us through this one.
Yes, this property is at the corner of Elizabeth Street and Dave Ward at the intersection there, just adjacent to the Come and Go that's located at Dave Ward and Donaghy. They are seeking to rezone the property from R1 to O3, which is restricted office, to allow Mr. Davies to move his law office to the location. This area is wouldn't anticipate that the change would have any impact on traffic whatsoever. The site accesses from Elizabeth Street. We anticipate at most 50 trips a day at the site. We don't anticipate any site improvements either. The site has 5 existing parking spaces that would easily accommodate the office use, and as well the house can be used for that as well. There is a precedence for this. A similar house has been used at the corner of Dave Ward and Mitchell, within 2 blocks away. It is not congruent with the comprehensive plan. However, it is immediately adjacent to an existing C2 site. So this would give sort of a good buffer between that and some of the adjacent residential uses. The back of the house backs up to the parking area for an existing single family. And then sort of the side towards the east, that backs up to a different single family house. So it sort of buffers well in that sense. So based on all of those comments, staff recommends approval of a rezoning request as it would allow appropriate use of the property in the context of the surrounding area and wouldn't negatively impact any adjacent property.
Thank you. And we'll give an opportunity for the applicant or owner. Add any additional comments?
Well, I mean, I think James said it all very well. I don't think I have anything really that I need to add. Our purpose is just simply to use it as a quiet office space and have a minimal impact on the community around us.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Well, let's see if we have any opposition to this request. Don't see any. We haven't had any come in. All right, commissioners, we'll bring this back in discussion. Looks pretty good to me. Like James said, that precedent of 03 a block away along Dave Ward, and I agree. I think it does kind of help create a buffer between the Dave Ward and the residential area.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Rebecca and a second from Delencia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. Move to our next request, which is to rezone from R1 to PUD, and this is occurring at Donaghy. Mr. Hill.
Yes, the applicant is requesting approval of a planned unit development, which would allow 19 single-family dwellings developed in a zero lot line layout on minimum 4,000 square foot lots. The plan proposes minimum 15-foot front setbacks, 10-foot rear setbacks, and 10 feet in between dwellings as well. The plan would propose a private internal street with a reduced right-of-way of 37 feet, and the proposed use and density are found to be consistent with the site's comprehensive plan designation. Additionally, the development of this property would extend sewer service to the area, which would allow for additional development of adjacent properties that would be cost prohibitive otherwise. The plan does tie into the property to the east, which is, if you remember, Kavanaugh Place subdivision that was just approved, I believe, 2 months ago. So it does tie into that, providing another connection point outside of just the two proposed on South Donaghy. Staff recommends approval of the rezoning request pending revisions as noted in the report, and as well as the conditions that are listed there. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Now, do we have an applicant or owner online to add any comments in favor of this request? Okay, I don't believe so. So we have any opposition to this request? All right, we will bring it back into commission for discussion. I'm reading through these recommendations one more time. Looks pretty good to me. Commissioners, what do you all think?
On approval, we'll get the, I guess the structural dimensions. We'll get that the next round, I guess. As far as just size, and I don't see anything as far as square footage.
Correct. There's a minimum square footage of a 4,000 square foot lot, and there is a maximum on the number of units, but you're correct. We would get a staff would review a final development plan that would have a more specific layout, and which also would require architectural elevations that would be taken into account the conditions of approval for materials and design standards that are also in the report. So that would get submitted to staff and that would be consistent with the conditions that you would approve tonight.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the rezoning of this property with the staff recommendations.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor from Ray and a second from Delencia. All those in favor to approve this rezoning from R1 to planned unit development?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? Very good. Motion passes unanimously. Moving right along, we have another rezoning request from R1 to another planned unit development, Mosquito.
Right, so the item 2H, the request to rezone South Sterling Phase, oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one, I apologize. So the property there at Salem and Meadow Lake, yes, the applicant has requested to rezone that property from A1 to PUD. It's comprised of about 2.5 acres there. The applicant intends to construct a series of duplexes. The comprehensive plan indicates that the area is appropriate for single-family development. However, the connection of Salem Road across the ridge to the Old Morrilton Highway has altered the context of that area, making single-family development less desirable. The site is adjacent to a mixture of uses, including single-family to the south, a childcare facility to the east, and a self-storage facility that's currently under construction to the west. And additionally, that intersection at Meadow Lake and Salem Road, it will be redesigned as a roundabout in the future. Staff recommends the approval of the rezoning with the 15 conditions listed in the report. The site is physically constrained, making traditional residential development challenging, and the proposed two-family development will not likely negatively impact adjacent properties.
Thank you, Ms. Skeeto. Do we have an applicant or owner online to speak in favor for this request? I do not see Mr. Hambeacon on or anyone else. Any opposition to this request? Okay, we'll bring it back. My only question, it looks like the only curb cut access we're going to have appears to be somewhat of a shared drive there on the east side of the property line. Is that accurate?
On Meadow Lake there, closest to the property boundary?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's the plan right now, correct. And that's staff recommendation as well, to keep the majority of traffic away from that intersection.
Beth, I didn't see any conditions, just those recommendations. Is that correct?
Let's see, let me scroll through here. So on page 55 and 56, there are 15 conditions listed. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. You want me to read them out?
No.
Okay.
No, I got you.
Have we had any feedback from the people that submitted it on the 15? Like, did they think they can handle it? I mean, 15, they're all appropriate. Have they given you guys any feedback since they're not on here?
I don't want to speak for the applicant. He did reply when we provided him with the conditions that he was aware of them and acknowledged them. But again, I don't want to.
He got the email. That's really what I wanted
correct.
to know. Okay.
So, but I don't want to speak for him. Correct.
Nope. He got the email. We know he got the email. That's good enough.
So if there's any question about it, you could consider tabling the request in his absence, but that's up to you.
So I don't think we should table it. The recommendations aren't going to change if we table it. So we can, if we motion is to approve, we can approve it with these recommendations as conditions. And they want to go forward, taking these under advisement and moving forward, they can. Otherwise, they can resubmit or whatever later, correct? I don't know that tabling is going to do anything other than pushing it off because the recommendations aren't going to change next month, correct?
Right.
That's a good point.
Correct.
I mean, we can't table it to see what they say, but if your recommendations aren't going to change, then our decision is not going to change just because they don't like the recommendations.
Staff recommendations will not change.
And this is to speak up today, so.
So with that, I'll make a motion that we approve this rezoning with, I'm not going to read all 15 of these recommendations, but with every one of the recommendations listed here as conditions of that approval.
Second.
I'll second that, Arthur.
Thank you, Arthur. We have a motion on the floor from Arthur and then a second from Brian and Rebecca. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Is that a no, Delencia?
Nay.
Nay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Any abstentions? Okay, motion still carries. Thank you. Okay, we have now another request for rezone from an I3 to a C2. Mr. Walden is going to walk us through this one.
Yes, so these last two applications are linked. One is a rezoning to accommodate the zoning that would enable the applicant to seek the conditional use application for a homeless shelter. So in the first one, I'll just be talking about the zoning, and then if you all want after that to get into the questions about operations or whether a homeless shelter is appropriate, then we can handle that on the second item. With this is a rezoning from I3 to C2. So that's our most intensive industrial district down to sort of a much lesser intensive neighborhood commercial district. This is located at the end of Robin Street. So that is sort of south of the Bruce Street area, down near where Rogers Group and the city transportation department is located. We do not anticipate that with the rezoning that there would be a large impact on traffic. When we analyze this, it being operated as a homeless day center, emergency shelter, and food pantry, those typically don't generate a lot of traffic except for traffic at particular times. In terms of looking at it from I3 to C2, this is not congruent with the comprehensive plan. However, we consider this edging the zoning back towards what the comprehensive plan has indicated for that area. So the comprehensive plan has multifamily indicated for this location. Obviously, commercial is closer to multifamily than industrial is. The current zoning allows a lot of really incompatible uses with the adjacent manufactured home park. And so this coming down to a C2 zoning would sort of narrow those potential adverse uses that could locate there. For example, currently the site could be altered to become a scrap yard or a vehicle salvage yard, which both are uses that are allowed by right under the current zoning. It is not anticipated any site improvements would occur at the site based on it already being developed, and it's largely developed in a way that could accommodate a variety of C2 uses. Additionally, the site's surrounded on two sides by residential uses on the west and the south with the adjacent manufactured home park. And so we feel like this would be sort of an appropriate rezoning to help protect that area. So based on all of those, staff recommends approval of the rezoning request as allow for a transition down in zoning intensity from the current I3 zoning, which allows numerous uses that could negatively impact adjacent property.
Thank you, sir. So again, we're just looking at the rezoning of this property, and then we'll get into the second request after this. Do we have anyone online to speak in favor on behalf of the applicant or the owner?
Yes, sir. I'm Spring Hunter. I'm the executive director of the Conway Ministry Center, and we are the applicant. I would just add that the scope of services that we're offering to bring into that neighborhood, a significant number of the families that already live in that particular area reach out to us on a regular basis to provide kind of the host of services that we offer, from our food pantry services to case management and rental and utility assistance. And so not only do I think we wouldn't be a disturbance to the adjacent properties, but I think we could be an asset there.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else to speak in favor of this request? Okay, do we have anyone to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing that there is none, we'll bring this back into commission for discussion. Commissioners, what do you think? I think it's an appropriate use of the property, and the zoning makes sense to me.
I agree. And it's definitely needed as well.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor from Ann and a second from Rebecca. All those in favor of this request?
Aye.
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 Aye as well. Anyone opposed or against this request? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes to rezone this property from I-3 to C2. Now we'll move on to the second part to discuss the conditional use permit for a shelter for homeless in a C2. Mr. Walden.
Yes, so this is the accompanying application with this. Again, with the application, we don't anticipate any likely large increase in traffic. With this, again, the site is located in a remote and removed location. That was an observation in terms of operating a homeless shelter that, addressing access to the site be something that it be part of the applicant's operations plan. In reviewing this, we felt like while it's not certain, it's likely that the proposed use would have fewer impacts on adjacent property than many of those uses that are already permitted under the property zoning. And so to help mitigate these are likely smaller impacts that we anticipate. Vegetative buffering to the south and the west is recommended, which is one of the things that's particularly advantageous about the site is that vegetative buffering already really exists. So there's not much that would really need to happen in terms of planning. It's just not cutting things down. So, based on the review, staff recommended approval of the conditional use permit with the following 7 conditions. The first being that shelter housing for individuals would be allowed from 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. So that is in the evening. There would be no limitation on when housing would be permitted for families. So they could stay on an indefinite basis there. No registered sex offenders would be allowed to be housed on the site. There would be on-staff staff supervision of overnight housing that would be required. The use would be operated in a manner to prevent the congregation of individuals outside the building. A 5-foot undisturbed vegetative buffer would be maintained along the western and southern property lines of the site. Operations of the drive-through food pantry would be conducted in a manner that limits the stacking of vehicles on Robbins Street. One of the things that's advantageous about the site is with Robbins and the adjacent drive that goes on the eastern side of that property, it allows for a flow of traffic through there. So stacking could occur in a way that wouldn't prevent sort of people from being able to get in and out along Robbins. But again, this is located at the end of a street, and so there's not going to be a lot of through traffic that is attempting to go through that area. And then lastly, an operational plan for the site would be provided to the city. This in part would address how users of the site access the location. The applicant would abide by this operational plan, and this condition wouldn't be intended to preclude any modifications to that operational plan that don't conflict with any of the conditions that we have in there. It's just simply that they would provide one to the city. We would have it on record. And for instance, if issues arose, that would be something that we could visit with the applicant about in terms of addressing those operational issues. So.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Hunter, did you have anything to add?
Not really. The only thing that I probably would mention is that, so I have sat on for several years the Faulkner County Homeless Coalition, and I have had a seat at the mayor's homeless task force, and we've discussed at length appropriate locations for an emergency homeless shelter, and been in discussions with various city staff as to what that looks like. And this is the type of location that's been indicated to us for some time, that if we could get kind of out of the flow of normal business, if we could get kind of at the end of the street or over in industrial areas, that might be the most appropriate location to try to provide services to our unsheltered homeless population. And so we've really tried to meet those requirements with this location.
Great, thank you. Do we have anyone else online to speak in favor of this request? And we give an opportunity for any opposition to this request. None? Very good. Okay, let's bring this back into commission for discussion.
Well, I'm glad that they have found a place to serve the homeless population. I think it works well for that area and for the needs of the city, really. So I make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the homeless shelter with the stated conditions.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ray and a second from Brian. All those in favor of this request for a conditional use permit for a shelter for the homeless in the C2 zoning?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Hunter. I commend you for your involvement and your the challenge of tackling that touchy subject. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we've gotten to the end of our lengthy agenda this evening. Commissioners, did y'all have anything else you'd like to discuss before we conclude for the year? We do have a couple of things here, if you guys don't have anything else.
I didn't get my book. And so I don't have anything else in my, except for saying goodbye. TV fine, folks.
Well, we do have a nice plaque here in grateful appreciation, and I'll just read it to you guys since you probably can't see it there, to Ms. Delencia Hervey for her dedicated service and untiring efforts in the planning for Conway's future as a member of the Conway Planning Commission from 2016 to 2020, signed by our wonderful mayor, Mr. Castleberry. I'd like to thank you too, Delencia. And I believe Mr. Walden will be delivering that to you sometime soon, probably after the first of the year.
Sounds good. And it's been an absolute pleasure working with all of the commissioners and all of the leaders. And I appreciate all of the insight and information that I've learned along the way. And I wish you guys an amazing next year.
Thank you.
Oh,
You'll be
question,
missed. Well, she's not the only one leaving, right?
Yeah, Brooks is as well. But
Brooks already left. Okay.
He's already checked out on it. So
I have a question, Brandon. At what point do we do our committee assignments for next year? Don't we usually we didn't do it last month, right? I'm not like having a brain moment here, right? We didn't do
No, you're right. We did not address that last month.
Don't we have to wait for the new people?
We usually assign them places and select the chairman and the officers, quote unquote, and we assign them to people to committees, and it's usually published in the first booklet of the year, correct? I could have my timing off. I thought
you're correct. And James is also making an effort for some training next month. I don't think we have a tentative date for that yet, do we? No.
We'll be sending that out.
Okay. And then as far as the election of officers and committee roles,
we can handle that officially at the January meeting, and sort of discuss some of that at our training in January. I would also like to add, very thankful, Delencia, for you taking your time being a planning commissioner is no small task, and certainly committing the amount of time, having all of these cases before you, and sometimes it not necessarily being, popular subjects to deal with. I very much appreciate you being willing to serve and doing such an excellent job over the last several years. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And then additionally, one of our staff members, I have to give some kudos. Mr. Levi Hill, recently, after a lot of cajoling for the last year or so. Levi, are you there?
I'm here.
After a lot of cajoling, he went out and registered to take the sit for the AICP exam, which is a nationwide certification, save Michigan and New Jersey, for practicing planning. So it's sort of a sign of his commitment to the profession. He passed with flying colors, and I'm very, very proud of him doing that. And want to say congratulations for that. And another member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. So
Congratulations.
Congrats, Levi.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's all I have for this evening, commissioners.
Merry
Mr.
Christmas.
If there's no further business, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Merry Christmas, you all.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.